time, Citibank scrutinized their debt, their debt profile with the mutual funds of only 16 crore rupees. When we are talking about today, during this fiscal years, last fiscal year, there was 1.25 lakh crore rupees was scrutinized by the NBFC. And the growth rate is 43% over the last financial years. And it is envisaged that during 2024, it may touch to 2 lakhs crore rupees. There is a wide scope. When we are talking of scrutinization, what is scrutinization? That is a more important issue these days. We are talking about the balance sheet of the bank or the NBFC, their assets. If they go on financing the assets, they will have to maintain the equity. So every time equity cannot be raised. Then there is developed the instrument of structures. When we're talking about the structural finance instruments, you can say a bond. It can be backed by the mortgage securities. It is also backed by the assets base. Both way it can be financed, either when you're taking a housing loan or something like that, that assets can be scrutinized. That means a lending company form identified pool of some homogeneous assets. Then they are forming with the help of the merchant banker a SPV, special purpose vehicle, and transfer their pools to the SPV. Then SPV will have a rating of the assets and going to the market to raise the funds. We will also discuss what is the benefit for the banker by the NBFC to offload their assets. That is also an important issue, which we are going to discuss in detail during these webinars. I'm just talking to you. If a company having a double B rated, lekin the assets are triple A or double A, when they're going for lending, taking a loans from the banking sector, they're giving a higher rate of interest. Although the assets are triple A or double A, if they're creating a separate vehicle, then double A or triple A company can borrow the loans at a cheaper rate. That is also a benefit for that. There is some risk also under the sector. So I'm not taking much time because eminent speaker are with us. I'm going to discuss the agenda of Indian securitization market performance, key advantage of assets securitization for the lender, challenging, recognizing, managing risk assets, hurdle NBFC, HFC, face today in securitization or structured finance. First of all, I want to invite Shri Manjunath, Dr. Manjunath. He's a professor of finance of business analytics, head of department, GM Institute of Technology. Mr. Manjunath
Yes, sir.
has 16 years of experience, 5 years of corporate experience in investment banking. And he is currently consultant for Knowledge and Human Development Authorities, Dubai, to deliver the development and knowledge sharing across UK qualification at the level of New Age Group. Mr. Nath has presented 85 research papers and working papers at national, international level, and conference and journal publications. So he's a very intelligent person. Mr. Nath, just I want to talk to you. Just I want a one question in my mind.
Yes.
How precisely is securitizations and how does it work? And what sort of business and sector can benefit from it in India? I think this is the most important. How it is working? Why I'm talking in my opinion was that securitization. So assets are being pooled, homogeneous assets are pooled, then it is transferred to another company. Who float the bond? Bond can be secured bond, assets based bond, mortgage based loan, that type of there. And with the bonds can be the derivatives. So now hand over to Mr. Manjunath. Give your thought, Manjunath.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thanks for asking this question. Well, when we talk about the securitization, that is the perfect example of innovation in the financial markets, which we generally see with the developed nations. Now, as you rightly mentioned during your introductory talk, in the 1990, Citibank securitized the auto loans and placed a paper with the GIC mutual fund, which was almost for 16 crores, which you mentioned. And that Citibank acted as an agent of ICICI for this particular issue. And now, having said that fact, what is actually the securitization? And certainly, the people who are here will definitely have a thought in their mind. How is that possible? Because they are used for the shares in the stock market to see, and that is called as the liquid, which is like, say, marketable. But there are certain things which are illiquid in nature. As you were talking about some assets, that was really a fantastic word, which you helped me to start my session. In fact, the securitization allows the financial institutions or the banks to convert the assets that are not readily available for market, or in simple words I can say, which are not readily marketable. And that those assets are converted as a rated securities. Once again, thank you for highlighting that point. There are credit rating agencies which will be rating these converted assets, which in turn they are called as the securities, and that those are tradable, may be tradable in the market, may not be tradable in the market. And now I would like to highlight some examples so that our audience will be getting a fact saying that what is that we are trying to talk about. The most popular example in the world of the securitization is residential mortgages. And we have the credit card receivables. We also have the car loans, auto loans, any specific loans. Now, the conversion of these loans or the receivables, these act as the creation of asset-backed securities for the securitization world. Now the question is, who is converting this? For what this has been done so far? And now we know that these loans are called as the debt instruments, and which are acting as the assets of the banks in the balance sheet. And to offload that component, the banks will go for the conversion of these things. And there is another separate institution which is acting as a special purpose vehicle. And now they are involved in ensuring that the conversion happens from the asset owner. In other words, the originator. Maybe a bank which is trying to convert credit card receivables as a security. And the SPV takes care of this and acts as a connecting bridge between the capital markets, or in simple words, where the investors are found. So between the investors and the banks, there comes the middle, that is the SPV. And now when the loans or the assets or the receivables are transferred from the originator to the special purpose vehicle, we say that asset transfer from originator to SPV. And somewhat the banks will be now much relieved, and they can focus on issuing the loans or the assets or the credit cards for the customers in terms of acquisition is concerned. Now, in simple words, if I want to put it across this, with respect to the US, SPVs are trust, but not as the corporations. But when we look at the Europe, SPVs are more structured as corporations. And we generally say that the securitization can be a trust or a corporation. But there are so many things which we have to look at from the banker perspective, the investor perspective, the investment bank perspective. Anyway, we have a good team here. Definitely, they'll be putting across their thought process. But now, there are some benefits when we talk about the securitization, basically for the banks and for the investors. And banks are certainly, in terms of the risk management, this has become so popular in the developed nations. And in India, we are in the phase of seeing these kind of transactions. Now, when we talk about the banks always rely on the three important aspects. One is the retail investors, the interbank, and the third one is the wholesale. And all these three aspects are a part of the funding. We know that. But there should also be one more platform, one more source of income wherein the bank should get. And that is the route where the securitization is coming into the picture. The another benefit is the balance sheet capital management, which you rightly said during your introductory talk, that the companies, that is the financial institutions and the banks, they try to offload their assets. And when you look at the investors, there are again some benefits for them. It is a unique investment for the investors as an opportunity for the risk return profile. And the most important thing is that these securitization offers loans to the borrowers. And now the investors will be having an access to see how the security has been designed, though they will not be having a direct interaction with the borrowers or the credit card owners. So in that way, sir, I look at that, the benefits for the investors as well as the financial institutions or the banks.
Very nicely, Mr. Nath, you have covered it. You also talked about the credit card, scrutinization of the credit card. There is no guarantee for that. There is no, it is unsecured venture.
Yes.
So how you, when the rating agency rating that instrument, I think they cannot get a even.
Yes, you're right.
Have any thought on that respect further?
Yeah, that which is very true, sir, because 1929, when we look at the Wall Street crash, certainly there was a huge spending in terms of the plastic money is concerned. And that was the worrying factor wherein when an organization is coming out with the credit card and when you look at the customer profile of the credit card users, measuring the risk management is the most challenging thing. Today in the world of the analytics, most of the banks are trying to understand on a dynamic basis to know which customer is likely to go default. Risk assessment, risk management has become a great challenge. And as you mentioned during your introductory talk, there are three levels where we talk about the risk. The highest risk is seen in terms of converting the securities to as a equity, or maybe low risk in terms of the debt, senior tranche or junior tranche or mezzanine tranche, which we call it as in the technical knowledge, in the technical area. So definitely it is a challenge in terms of the risk assessment is concerned. And that is the major challenge now for the government as well as the banks in terms of rating the respective area.
Very nice, very nice. I will come back to you, Mr. Nath. I think very interesting subject. You touched about the asset-backed lending, asset-backed, you can say, security they are creating for that. I think these are so many things are there. Even banker are getting benefit immediately. If they are
Yes.
giving a housing loan for 25 years by securitization of 2 or 3 years, having creating a pool, they are getting the benefit for that. And it's not possible for the bank, some bank or some NBFC to offload the assets which are not eligible even. So that is a challenging aspect. We will come back to you. Now I'm coming to Shri Ajay Vyas sir. Ajay Vyas ji, you are there? Hello, Ajay Vyas sir.
Yeah, Gupta sir, I'm there, very much there.
Ha, ha. Good evening, sir. Good evening,
Good
sir.
evening, good evening.
Shri Ajay Vyas is a former executive director, UCO Bank, digital banking strategy innovators. Mr. Vyas is Bachelor of Engineering Civil and Executive MBA. He has problem solving and analytic skill, creativity and innovations, decisiveness, growth mindset, collaborations, clear communications, and team building. Under his leadership, UCO Bank had come out from the PCA and he had done a great job for the UCO Bank. Mr. Vyasar, the assignment required different set of skill since he has to coordinate between the central and state government because he was heading the state level banking committee of the Bhopal to push the government sponsored schemes, financial inclusion, and overall financial development of the state. He done an excellent job when he was general manager with the Central Bank of India, Bhopal. Sir, I am thankful to you. I within a short notice, short information, I think you always bless us. So, sir, just I want your thought under these scrutinizations for that. Sir, the point is, scrutinization in India seem to be concerned in a small number of industries, but more need to be done to broaden scope. So, what I feel, sir, major
Uh,
scrutinization, what we are happening for the NBFC,
yeah.
it is for the home loan backed by the mortgage security. As we already talked in the previous speakers, what about the credit card? What is the unsecured loan? What are the microfinance? Whether such instrument can be also be developed, although it is under the scheme. Lekin I have seen the very few cases where the microfinance also coming as scrutinization by the banker. So, sir, have any views from your side?
Thank you, Gupta ji. Thank you, the panelists and the participant for joining this webinar. See, yesterday when we had a session with Gupta ji, he told me we have to be very practical. We should talk when people understands what is securitization and other things. I'll give an example to you. You have a commercial complex building. Okay? This commercial complex building is not on an authorized plot. Now, if you want to mortgage this property, the or traditional lenders will not lend you money. Absolutely, they will not give you money. Absolutely, and it is very difficult for the borrower to have a loan on this property. Now, if some NBFC or some investor comes, understand the risk profile of the things, what will be the government stand on this, how things are going to happen, and it takes a risk on those things. And if he gets money out of this, he can securitize these assets. Probably this is the simplest form of securitization which we can talk about. Normal, because he is not looking everything on those things. Now let's understand one thing: why things are not happening in the India and why things are not getting proper thrust of securitization is. See, there are two things. The people who are going to invest in your instruments, maybe asset-backed instruments, other thing, they need to look into two things. What will be how the money will come back to us, the interest bearing, and what the capacity. Secondly, what is this is one of the major things which is happening right now, and the market is not ready for this type of ecosystem where you can do a rating. This is done in big corporates where the editing agencies are there which are doing all these things. For smaller companies, the Manjuna has rightly said, he was talking about the financial intermediaries or the banking sector or the NBFCs. He didn't touch upon the corporates. Corporate also need a structured approach for their products also. I take an example. Suppose the industry is there with having two units with it. One unit is working very fine. Other unit is creating a problem. Now, because of this one unit becoming a problem, the rating of the whole group has gone down. Suppose he has one company called XYZ and it has two subsidiaries, A and B, both are under the company ABC, XYZ. Now, one of the companies got a problem, then the whole company had a problem, and they problem in getting the good rate of interest also. Now, what can be done in this thing company? If we bifurcate these, suppose we do some structuring of the finances, I think, if we bifurcate their assets, and if we convince the bankers, okay, you leave these assets, you take out from your books of accounts, and fresh funding can be, we can create some instrument and fresh funding can come, which will work as a capital. So mostly these types of securitizations and structure approach is usually done to infuse the capital in the system, which the normal traditional bankers are afraid to do. Second important thing, in this case, what has happened, you have hive off the assets from one of the companies, given it to some investors, looking for the investors, and brought the money in the systems. So what you have done, you have securitized the assets of the company. These type of transactions are very few in India right now. Neither the consultants in India, neither the bankers understand the concept of securitizations. Normally, they don't have that understanding. It's a very maturing market. It's not a matured market. Gupta ji, slowly when people, the consultants, the financial intermediary will understand the whole concept and understand the fundamentals of securitization, probably they will have. Both bankers and the corporates both should get advantage of securitizations. You have to reduce your rate of interest by securitization. Now, in the example I gave you, if I hive off the assets of one of the good company working on these things, then I have a better rating of that company. And then I have a better rate of interest. These are so in case of exports also, export receivables can also be securitized. This is a very, very general, this is the most practiced securitization mode in India right now. What we do, the cash flows are securitized. When we export them, then the money. So these are the instruments which normally is being done. Other than this, probably in India, we are not doing. Why we're not doing and why, how can we increase them? Fundamentally, we need to bring an education to the culture in the banking sector. The people need to understand. Training programs are there. In none of the training programs which I have attended, they have never spoke upon securitizations. They have never talked about structured approach, structured advances to the companies. Nowhere it is taught. Nobody is still talking. There is no policy documents also in available bank. In the loan policy of the bank, there is no concept called structured advance right now. I'm part of these processes, but they nowhere. They are not talking about securitization also. Achha, another important, why banks are not doing it, why the other banks are doing. See, still we have a approach towards the size of the balance sheet, not on the bottom line of the balance sheet. So in case if you want to hive off your assets at the end of the year, probably your balance sheet will squeeze. That no banker wants right now in India right now. The concept is not there. In foreign banks and foreign countries, what the concept, they are not looking to the size of the balance sheet. They are looking to the bottom line of the balance sheet. That is one of the very, very immediate concept. Now, what is happening? The private banks are earning not only on the processing fee, they are earning on securitization also. See, so their income is not based on the investment, their income is based on the service part also. So that philosophy, that concept now need to be cultivated in Indian banks also, especially the PSU banks, that you need not to look for the interest-based income, you should look for the service-based income also, which is part of the securitization scheme. Why the other banks are doing? See, I had foreign banks in Guptaji in Hong Kong and Singapore.
Sir.
In most of these in the foreign banks were downselling their assets at the month of March. So they are reducing their balance sheet size. Capital management is there, plus their income, service income is also coming. So next year, when they will again take up the new assets, so they will have the processing fee again back on those things. So these are small change, and the most fundamental thing is training has to be done. A new culture has to be brought in Indian bank, PSU banks, Indian bank, wherein the parts of the academics also, part of the training also, and part of the loan policy also. Then only things will happen. Right now, it doesn't mean that we are not doing it. We are doing it. the example which I gave you, a company of XYZ, which we have done it recently. So that a live example I have shared with you, where we have securitized the assets. That's the case where really we have done this, and a foreign company has come for not only for receivables, for assets also. Thank you.
Very nicely, sir, Vyas sir, you have touched all such things. Because in India it is not picking up because there is no education for that.
Absolutely.
People are not aware.
Yes.
Some few people were knowing what is securitizations, what is the you can say structural advance, structural how to structure the pool asset. That is also a issue these days, sir. You have rightly tell about the bottom line and talking about the top line. But we are more concerned the size of the balance sheet. Because once you offload your balance assets, so you are getting some profit. And I am seeing that if you suppose you have given 100 crore rupees home loan and you have offloaded, you are getting about 110 or 120 rupees. And that SPV may get 150 crore. And by respect of bonds, even your risk has also been diversified to the bondholders. That is also there. Sir, you are rightly said, if a two companies, they are not working properly, one company, their rating come down. If their assets are double A or triple A, if they offload their assets, definitely the rate of interest can come down. And they got the funds also. It can be beneficial both way to the banker and to the party. I think you are, sir, rightly touch all such things. Sir, these days, when we are talking about the NBFC, I think this scrutinization is taking place. As I told that during last fiscal years, 1,25,000 crore already structured. Sir, what do you feel that the instrument which is based by the mortgage assets or assets-based lending is sufficient for the securitization, sir? Or other instrument can be developed, sir?
See, other instrument can be developed, but asset-based instruments, I think they are the safest type of and the most rudimentary instruments in the securitization part right now. Now you can create a lot of derivatives on securitization. You can create cash flow discounting. You can do. So you can do you can create a lot of many derivatives out of that. But this is the rudimentary product of asset-based securitization, which now we are following, like home loan, vehicle loans, all those things are being asset-based on. So that is where they are following. Both Nbfcs and microfinance both are observing because they are short of funds also. Now PSU banks are not short of funds. The CD ratio is approximately 70%. So they don't need to downsell the things. And the NBFCs and the microfinance are short of their capital and their funds. So they want to earn some money. They want to offload the things and acquire new assets.
I 100% agree because the banking has a CD ratio is very less and there are no dearth of the funds. By call market or other things from the Reserve Bank under the repo, reverse repo or something, they can take the money. And they have, I think, capital adequacy ratio is also sufficient for this.
Very good. Right now, very good, sufficient.
Very good, sufficient. Because otherwise, what happened, if they are gone lending, so they will have to maintain the capital adequacy also. In that respect, this scrutinization is the most important aspect, sir. I think this is a major aspect, sir. So
another very important thing which I want to highlight you. The performance metrics of these banks are on the top line, not on the bottom line. By the government. See, these banks are owned by the government. Mostly the major shareholding pattern is from the government of India right now. And government of India is benchmarking these banks on the top line, not on the bottom line. Because when they do the analysis of these banks, how much growth was there in the advanced portfolio? Now, if they offload these things and they securitize these things, so what the performance they will show? And nobody understands now the bottom line. So unless until there is a change in the evaluation matrix of the PSU bank, then only the thing securitization will take place. Till such time, the bankers are happy with holding the assets in their books.
Sir, actually, in India, because I was also member of the one MU committee.
Yeah.
They are considering the growth. How much growth you have done it,
Yeah,
how your
absolutely.
sale has increased,
Yeah.
but they never stressed on the profit. I think profit should be benchmark
Benchmark.
instead of having the growth in the sale or something like that.
Yeah.
I think that parameter has and should undergo a change for that also. So I will come back to you, sir.
Okay,
Again.
thank you.
Sri Maya Krishnan, I am coming to you, sir. He is a chartered accountant, BCom, FCA, an ICSE member, chartered accountant with 25 years, post qualification experience, practicing chartered accountant, and he is doing lot of work for under this sector. Mr. Mayakrishnan, just I am asking you, what are the asset securitizations? Key benefit for the originators? And what are the mutual reason business choose to scrutinize the assets? Have any thoughts sir, on that point?
Asset scrutinization, you're asking, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So it's a matter of the internal control. The assets, existence of the asset should be ensured, because when the assets are in the books, the physical presence also should coincide. Otherwise, whatever is mentioned in the books will become a fiction. It is not backed by true assets. So verification of existence of asset is a part and parcel of the internal control exercise, as well as it's an assurance for the investors, for the other people who are depending on the financial statements, to know that the assets are very much in existence and it is not a mere paper. It's not a fictitious statement reflecting assets, and the assets are really there. So when a prospective buyer intends to buy a business, immediately he sees the balance sheet, he sees the profit and loss account. So the balance sheet, he presumes that assets are there. So without verification, that cannot be ensured. It will result in a big shock at a later date. So verification of asset during the course of the year as well as at the end of the year is very much material for the businesses. So as auditors, we also play a very great role in ensuring that the assets are really, the balance sheet assets are really in existence, and the balance sheet is backed by the assets values mentioned therein. More so, the assets value will be more than the actual value mentioned in the balance sheet, because the balance sheet reflects the historical cost, the purchase price of the assets, mainly when it comes to real estate. But actually, the real estate, when you compare the market value, it would be much higher, because in Chennai Mount Road, it's a very prominent place. 100 years back, if you could have purchased a property at a few thousands of rupees, the same property may be still being carried out in the balance sheet in the same value. But if you really value it today, it will really, in a conservative basis also, it will fetch few hundreds of crores of rupees easily. So balance sheet assets are at the least only indicative, and the real assets generally will be more, and leaving out the brand equity and other intangible assets also. Nowadays, they are also getting valued. Many times they are not valued, but it is there, very much there, though it is not reflected in the balance sheet. So verification of the assets are integral part of any business, sir. I hope I have addressed your query.
So, sir, you are very clear, but you are talking about the verification of the assets in the balance sheet. You are talking about the balance sheet value is very less. When you are talking about the market value, it is very high. That I agree, because while having a pool, homogeneous pool,
Oh, yeah. Okay.
any bank or any Nbfc are creating that before then they pass on to the SPV. So in that respect, there is credit rating for each instruments, each account. They are having a rating. If you are having a AAA rating, then rate of interest will be less. Bond market will be much higher. If that as per the rating, it is going to the market. Sir, my point to you now, we are talking about the NBFC.
Yeah. Yes, sir. I was talking in the general context.
Yes, sir. You're right, sir. Then we are talking about the housing finance companies, sir.
Yeah.
Now they are very much active in the securitization market.
Yes.
As the last fiscal year, what you are talking about, the total outstanding is 1,25,000 crore rupees, lakhs crore rupees. That means they must be facing some challenges. Have any view on that? What type of challenges the NBFC or HFC are facing, sir?
Yes, sir. Yes. Before that, sir, I will just mention few points regarding importance of verification in securitization context, because same truth holds good here also, but even more it is important because the funding is raised based on the existence of the securities, and it's because of a homogeneous pool of assets. So the very much the due diligence has to be exercised that the values of the assets are there, and the assets will realize in the correct manner and correct value at the correct time with the correct payouts, so that SPV can service its customers promptly based on the realizations. So for that purpose, verification of the assets, proper due diligence are very much required, which has to be carried out at every time a new asset is acquired. And credit rating agencies also play a major role in this aspect, sir. That is point number one. Now, coming to the challenges faced by the NBFCs to tap the securitization market is that one of the main challenges is the fragile ecosystem, whereby in the recent past, we have seen the failures of great NBFCs like ILFS, Diwan Housing Finance Corporation, whereby the mutual funds or the investors who had invested in these securities had seen their values fall to a great extent. So, in spite of all the supervisory mechanisms exercised by our regulators, most importantly our Reserve Bank of India, still our NBFC market, our ecosystem, there are some good companies, there are some bad eggs too in the basket. So that is an important challenge, which makes others averse to securitize the assets of the NBFCs, certain NBFCs. That is one challenge which is faced, according to me. Then the market still in India is not matured enough. Still it's growing. Even in the first quarter of this fiscal 2022, NBFCs have increased their securitization by around 33,000 crores of rupees, whereas it was around 17,000 crores only in the first quarter of last fiscal. So it shows a growth of almost about 100 times growth, 2 times the last time achievement. But still, it is not the real potential which has been achieved. Still, there is a lot more potential for the NBFCs of our country to achieve this. So in due course, by tapping the market, by educating the customers to invest in this products, etc., these difficulties can be overcome, sir. That is one thing. Even on the other hand, if you see, as Mr. Vyas has pointed out, there's huge assets in our banks which are unutilized. As the top line is so huge, still it is like sitting on a sleeping lion or sleeping tiger. We are not securitizing these assets to the extent possible. We are slack in this area. So that also has to be tapped, so that, as you rightly pointed out, every time we cannot go and raise capital from the market, from the shareholders. When we have assets that can be tapped and raised money, and when our liquidity can be improved based on our available resources, which can be innovatively and dynamically utilized. So it has to be utilized, and it is also having a very great role in playing our banks' capital adequacy ratios also. It will help to augment the ratios. So challenges of NBFCs. Another thing is cross-border securitization is not taking place in India now. It is at the infant stage only. So when foreign funds come into India, so NBFCs can have a greater share in the market. Even a higher growth is my humble opinion, sir.
Very nice, sir. What are you suggesting, sir? Cross-border transaction will facilitate for the NBFC to grow much more? What are you feeling?
I believe, sir, because fund inflow will be there. So,
Okay.
and another thing is this foreign exchange arbitrage, this valuation is also there
Okay.
because of the exchange rate valuation.
Okay.
So what a small investment for them will be a higher investment from our Indian rupees converted point of view. So cross-border securitization will help, is my belief, sir. It will help in a long way because availability of fund, liquidity is there, cash flow will be there, waterfalls will be there. So we can make use of that.
Sir, major aspect for the NBFC, or when we are talking about the housing finance company, rating, because their instruments are no AA or AAA rated. This is the one aspect. Another thing is that I find out a practical aspect. To go to the capital market with their bond or something, it is somewhat delayed. Have any thought on that aspect, sir, for you?
The housing finance companies.
Yeah, definitely NBFC, sir. What happened when, because without rating the instrument, rating the account, so scrutinizing not possible.
Sure, sir. Sure.
That means to get a rating, NBFC.
Yeah, this credit rating is a blessing in disguise for the securitization and vice versa.
Yeah, you are right, sir. You are right, sir.
So it helps the management to exercise more controls, improve themselves, operate more efficiently in the market.
Yes,
so it will help them to fill in the gaps. And due diligence reports, frequent due diligence reports also by various stakeholders from external sources also will help them to improve their functioning.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I think you have covered very nicely for what is happening, what is the difficulty in the sale by the NBFC or housing finance company. I think this is the major aspects. Now I will come back to you, sir. I will coming to Shri Mahanti, sir, who is MCOM CIAB, former General Manager, Mid Corporate SBI, joined as provisionary officer in the year 1980. Worked in the various capacity in the bank, mostly in credit. Posted to the bank New York office for foreign assignment from 2005 till 2010. Was in charge of the bank USA operation compliance system and external audit. Mr. Uh, Manti sir is general manager in charge of the big corporate, basically handle large corporate clients. And he attended so many workshops on IFRS at London, did a CIB also, and attending a special program of IFRS. He was with Research in India also, and he was our mentor. Under his leadership, so Resurgent seen a very good days and shown a big growth under his leadership. Manti sir, we welcome you. I am thankful to you, sir, sparing your valuable time. I know that you are so much busy person. Again, still you bless us. We are thankful to you, sir. So, sir, Manti sir, I am just asking you, because you are the expert in risk factor also. What sort of risks are involved in these asset securitizations? What steps need to be taken to manage these risks effectively? I think risk factors are there, sir. Once you scrutinize any assets for them, it is backed by the, although it is backed by the securities, or you can say mortgage assets, or backed by the assets. Still, it can be operational risk, it can be financial risk, it can be any type of risk for the asset. So, sir, have any views, sir, on that aspect, sir? सर अनम्यूट कर लीजिए सर अनम्यूट कीजिए सर अनम्यूट कर लीजिए सर अनम्यूट कीजिए हाँ राइट सर नाउ यू कैन गो अहेड सर
Thanks again, and thanks to you. Thanks to all the analysts and I welcome all the participants. So thank you for the opportunity given to me. See, this process of securitization is what we have been discussing for the last almost half an hour now. Actually, is quite clear to all of you. It is the market in India is so far is not that yet developed. It's developing over a period of time, as Mr. Gupta saying actually, and Mr. Vyas and other speakers have been saying actually that it has started from 1990 onwards from US. US actually is a trendsetter of this securitizations market. But the problem is it has started there, and US also is a culprit of this failure of the securitization market. Both they have initiated this, and they have also made such a issue problems, as a result of which a big financial institutions like your Lehman Brothers, which was 175 years old, collapsed overnight. It happened actually when I was there in New York. We could see actually overnight, actually one financial institution which was almost 200 years old collapsed overnight. Next day it is not there. It's not there because purely on subprime lending. Purely on subprime lending. Actually. So that means the rating agencies, what you are now talking actually, how rating agencies play an important role in securitizations. Because the question is risk. Idea is, what are the risks actually the bank perceive? Bank perceive actually there are various risks actually when I securitize a loan. When I securitize a loan, actually it has got various credit risk, liquidity risk, operational risk, compliance risk, legal risk, strategic risk, so many other risks are there actually, which are not been mentioned here actually. But how to eliminate this risk? You cannot eliminate the risk actually. How to reduce the risk? The question is how to reduce the risk. Risk reduction is important. So the factor is there are three entities involved in the entire process of securitizations. One is originator, the banks, or the Nbfcs, or the financial institutions. Other side, we have actually the SPVs or this legal entities, which takes away the assets for the banks. And the third side actually the investors. So who actually looks after the risk factor actually? When there are three things. One, the banks wants liquidity, it tries to offload its pool of assets, which are really good pool of assets, homogeneous assets, illiquid assets. It's not homogeneous, but illiquid assets, which I can't sell in the open market immediately when I want, or there is a withdrawal from the bank, mass withdrawal from the bank. Actually, I need liquidity. At that time, it's not available. So what I do actually, I immediately require some liquid assets available to me so that I can take care of those eventualities. So in such case, what happens actually, banks, they do such strategic investments. They create this pool of assets.
Sir, your voice is not coming.
To picture.
Thank you, sir.
This is the risk. This is the risk actually. The rating agencies, we depend so much on the rating agencies. The three things. One is at the time when I assess the loan, it has to be assessed in a such a way so that there should be any default foreseen at the beginning itself. Suppose assessment is wrong, and I've been issued assessment.
Okay.
At the beginning itself, actually they will fail. Okay. Right. So the rating agencies also cannot do anything actually.
Sir.
So the process is that the rating agencies plays a very important role actually. When they rate the securities in such a way so that investors can look to that and ensure that yes, the ratings are good, either AAA, AA, or A, whatever it may be actually. The higher the rating actually, the lower the risk. The lower the risk, the lower the reward actually. So naturally, the lower the reward actually, so it is beneficial for the banks, originators, definitely, because they can pass on the benefit to the borrowers. In turn, the borrowers can pay less interest, isn't it?
Very important. Very important.
So and then the offload. They offload it actually to the SPV actually. So when they offload, so what happens? The moment takes place, it goes out to the balance sheets of the bank. Bank gets the loan. Bank gets the cash. It comes by way of cash to the bank. Once the liability gets inflated, okay, so the liability remains. But what do you do with the liability? The liability comes as cash. So that cash actually I will manage by repaying my depositors or by creating fresh loans.
Right.
So the risk actually, the credit risk, liquidity risk, as I said, operational risk, compliance risk, strategic risk, and the primary risk is the bad debts which arise is on account of failure or default on the part of the borrowers. The borrowers default, then automatically there is a cascading effect, isn't it? So
Right.
what will happen? The cash flow will completely stop. When the cash flow stops, actually, I have nothing to repay, neither the principal nor the interest. So the investors are completely at higher risk. So how to manage the risk? Actually, there are a couple of things which I can just touch upon. First of all, actually, we have to identify the risk. What risk actually we can perceive? Analyze the risk, then prioritize the risk one by one. Which comes first, which comes last. Number 1, 2, and 3. Then treat the risk. How you treat the risk actually? In which way you treat the risk actually? Then gradually monitor risk actually as and when you, go along. As you go along. So, but I would say actually the most important factor which is available to the banks, the management has got a very primary responsibility actually for management of the risk. Bank management.
Right.
The foremost responsibility of the management is to assess the risk involved in the securitization of credit receivables before the participates in such activities, isn't it?
Right, sir.
Once the risks are assessed, management should integrate all securitization activities into the bank strategic plan, which is important. Bank strategic plan. At a minimum, the strategic plan should include liquidity objective. See, I'm highlighting liquidity objective, performance objectives, and procedures for maintaining capital levels commensurating with the risk involved in it. Therefore, the bank should determine if proper policies, procedures are in place before the bank engage in any securitization activities. These policies should address this at the minimum, these areas. One is accounting. Second is managing the legal risk. Third is minimizing the conflict of interest, which is very, very important, conflict of interest, and avoiding undue concentrations of pool of credit risk. Ongoing monitoring, which I've been telling you, actually monitor the risk. Ongoing monitoring, as and when you go, keep on monitoring, see whether there are risks. These are the major factors.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Manti sir. I think risk factor आपसे अच्छा नहीं, nobody can tell. Because sir, my major issue, sir, is there. One, the bank or Nbfcs scrutinize the assets. It is passed on to a special purpose vehicle.
Yes.
To risk, they are already offloaded to the another company.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Now that risk gone to the bondholders. That means the risk which are the banker has to feel it is divided to the bondholders.
Correct.
So risk already mitigated, sir. So it is passed on to other person. Have any thought about that, sir?
See, that ultimately the entity, the SPV looks into the credit procedures, the credit, the robust credit analysis of credit creations of the bank.
Right.
If ab initio the credit is good, the pool is good, as you say, actually the company may be rated as BB, B, but if the company's assets are AAA or AA, that is important. That means company may be rated badly, but the company's procedures, policies are so good that they can assess, they can analyze, they can actually offload their securities in such a way, their loans such a way, so that these are actually good, sound.
So, sir, there is one question from Mr. S.C. Agarwal, because you are expertise in the banking sector, sir. He is telling, why not lending institutions, banks or NBFC raise their voice where the company are having crores and crores debtor continue in their balance sheet for years and years. Sir, have any view? Because you are heading the...
I couldn't get you. Can you just repeat the question again, kindly?
Sir, their main point is why the lending institutions are not raising the voice when the company carry out crores of debtor in their books, in their balance sheet, and banks is not concerned with that.
Hey, the question is actually, Gupta sir, I'll again pass it on to all these participants.
Sir.
The companies may be having actually their debtors, but the question
Sir.
is receivables. What is the quality of receivables? What is important is the quality.
Yes, that is important aspect, sir. What you rightly tell, the company has a debtor because their business is like that. They want to save and having a debtor. If
Yes.
debtor period is 360 days or something
Yes.
like that, that is
Yes.
concern for the bank. It
Yes,
is
exactly.
a normal debtor. That is a part of the business for any enterprise. So how the bank will raise the voice? Voice can only be raised if the period of the debtor are increasing day by days and they
Yes.
are not realizing the debtor. That means now this are position is entire different. Now cash flow lending is why you're coming of the cash flow lending. Now instead of the assets based lending, now we are switching over to cash based lending. When
Yes.
cash based lending will come, I think this problem will not be arise because unless the debtor are realized, they cannot get a loan from the banking sector.
Exactly, precisely.
That is
After all, actually, what is ensure the quality. If the
that
quality is good, actually everything will be fine. Everything will fall in place.
sir. So, Ajay Vyas sir is there? Vyas sir. The main reason of business becoming sick is only one. The borrower should not divert their funds capital or borrow funds. Manti sir, ये आपको लिखा है. I think it is better. They appreciate you. The main reason for the business becoming sick is only one. Borrower should not divert their fund capital or to borrow funds. He has given the reply. That's why it is becoming. Yuvraj and Goa looking for the funding of the building for the project like collector school and hospital. Anyone can help without the upfront charges. So you can talk separately to research in India, sir.
Yeah, okay. I'll talk. I'll talk about it.
No, he's asking question. I'm just reading the question, sir.
Yeah.
Yuvraj Malik, he asking how he can get a loan collateral against the school. Let he should talk in a different way platform.
Now we can address this
Because we
separately.
are having.
I can address it
We can
separately actually with you, and they can get the answers from you.
Nbfcs, no problem. We are technology company having okay, no issue. Then anything we are having a contract investor who invests through securitization, no issue. He's only telling perfect live example. Mount area, okay, appreciation. I received your mails. We use webinar, all practical related points, no issue. I have contact with HNI who will help you, no problem. I believe uh, you can get funding through trade finance product from banks by converting NBFC, NFB to FB. Yes, you can do it. No problem. Question. Why should not be scrutinization of director of the company where the director or PM, driver, barber, maid servant, low paying employees of the parent company? I think now the fintech has come where all the director life history available.
They
Now
have, yeah.
entire different. By fintech assessment, it can be worked out. Who are the player? How we can get the finance? The government work order? Definitely, you can get TAFA separately. Receivable can be scrutinized either through PTCA. Yes, you are right. Can we scrutinize the normal receivable of the company? Who are the player and what is to be process? Can we scrutinize the normal receivable of the this scrutinization can be done by the banker or NBFC, not by the individual person. Okay, if you are receivable or with the bank, you are taken a bank, the bank has a right to have a scrutinize that thing. You cannot do it. Can we scrutinize the normal receivable? Okay. Startup policy, collateral free loans by the government bank here don't give this loan to registered startup at DIP, ECC and also startup not registered if yet. We know the process about it. Startup is a different policy. Now the state bank also come out with a startup branch. So you can startup ke liye what I am suggesting you. So there is some investor where you can go and take the loan assistance from the investor. Investor are putting the money as a capital also for that thing. Without any security, they are also providing the loan.
As you rightly say, actually, I think State Bank of India probably started a subsidiary
Sir.
For the startups.
They have started at Hyderabad, I feel.
Yes, somewhere it's started. I'm not aware of it where exactly. Yes, but
Apart from traditional general source of funding, scrutiny is one of the new and dynamic source of funding. Yes, you are right. Doctor sir, Doctor, आपके नाम से लिखा है मंजू सर, मंजुनाथ जी. You have to say something, Manjunath?
Well, sir, with respect to the major challenges, I was having a thought in terms of the challenges with respect to the securitization in India. So if time permits, I would like to highlight on those.
Time is there, no problem. You tell me.
Yeah. So the major challenges which the research says that with respect to the stamp duty, most of the state governments are having a 0.1% when we talk about the transfer of the assets, the property movable or the immovable. The securitization, when we talk about that, it involves the transfer of mortgage debt, and the rate of the stamp duty is one of the major issue. It being 0.5% to as high as 4 to 8% on the value of the transaction. That is the major challenge. And the second challenge, what I would like to highlight is on the upfront of the government or whether the institutions who are looking forward. There is a compulsory registration when we talk about the transfer. So when we convert the assets into the liquid assets, then definitely the question of the debt also is at stake, and certainly the definition of the debt in terms of the property transfer of property act as well as the sale of goods act has to be looked into. And when we talk about the income tax provisions act, there is a section 60 which talks about it contemplates transfer of income without a transfer of assets which are the source of income. In such a case, the income so transferred is chargeable to income tax as the income of the transferor and is included in his total income. So now these are some of the challenges which comes in front of us when we start talking about the securitization, having that as a sophisticated process here in India. All the speakers have wonderfully expressed their views along with you, saying that yes, this is a new arena, this is completely a niche. Yes, since I'm representing the academics, yes, I would like to appeal with everyone saying that yes, sir, certainly the university syllabuses needs to be upgraded so that the kids will start talking about the securitization. Like when I was doing my MBA, the derivatives took birth in the 2002 to 2008, and now the present generation should definitely get the feel of what is actually the securitization is. When I listen to my students, if I put across this word, they say, is it something like a bill of exchange? I said, not really. And they asked me, is it something like forfeiting? Not really. This is entirely something new. So that is all which I wanted to put across in front of the table here. And before I close my thought process, sir, the process of securitization becomes too expensive when we talk about the transfer of assets, keeping in mind the stamp duty. So this is what I just wanted to highlight. And then thank you for giving me the opportunity to express my thoughts on the basis of the research.
For Mr. Manjunath, is it not an assignment of the assets, assignment of the debts?
Yes.
A transfer is
assignment of loans.
Assignment of loans. Assignment of debt, yes.
So it should be assigned. Another point, what you're talking about, I think for the MBA or CA courses, I think this is one of the subject, securitizations and structured finance. I think that is one of the topic.
Yeah, but what happens is with the state universities, I'm referring to, there are B schools. The B schools are more aggressive in nature and they have the advanced finance. But when we talk about the government-led universities or the institutions, there we need to have a kind of, like how we talk about the structured finance, structured source of finance, there comes a structured finance syllabus development also, sir.
You're right, sir. So there is one question, Mr. Manjunath.
Yes, sir.
So from the Harindra,
yeah.
How to get funding from investors? Have you on that?
Yeah, it's an open question how to get the fund from the investors. There are various sources, like when we talk about the traditional sources and the general sources of short term, medium term, long term. We talk about the angel investors, venture capitalists, private equity. There are various sources where we can get the funding from the investors. However, securitization is more than that when we talk about as one of the new venture, new way for the people who are not used for. That is a new source of funding for the investors, from the investors, for the corporations.
This new concept has come, although it was what you rightly and you also told. In 1991, there is one transaction by the Citibank,
Yeah.
and thereafter it's not picked up. Now, by the NBFC, what they are coming under scrutinization is structured finance. Nowadays, it is picked up like anything. Even banker are also not coming for this scrutinization because, as Mr. Ajay Vyas also told, the banker flushes with the funds and they don't with their balance sheet. They are more concerned with the assets size of their balance sheet instead of the profitability or something like that. That was the aspect. Sir, I'm thankful to Mr. Manjunath. Have any last word to our, you can say, members or the bankers or the our entrepreneurs from your side? Because you are a professor and excellent, you're doing a financial aspects.
Yeah.
Have any?
Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah. I have a heartfelt thanks for Mohanty sir, CA Maya Krishnan sir, and Ajay Vyas sir, because you guys are the real pillars when we talk about the knowledge transfer. And you guys have really helped me in terms of learning new things, which I was not aware of on the upfront of the practical aspects. Definitely, this will be taken to the classroom. And I wish every now and then this kind of webinars should go on. And especially special thanks to our Gupta sir. Having a mix of academician with the practitioners was something like, say, I really enjoyed the session. I have made a lot of notes when speakers were talking about. I have all the notes which I have made it. And this is a great webinar for me as a participant too, sir. That is what I can say.
Very nice. You are a speaker and also participant also.
Yes, sir.
I think this is the first time I'm saying about you. Very nice.
Thank you very much, sir.
Maya Krishnanji, have any view
Yes.
last word to your listeners, sir?
Yes, sir. Manjunath sir proved that he is a student. We all have to be students till our last day of our life. It's a lot of takeaways from this meeting, all professionals, academicians, etc. Regarding Dr. Manjunath's queries, regarding that stamp duty on securitization, only when there is transfer of immovable properties, stamp duty comes into play. Transfer of Property Act and stamp duty comes into play. Yeah. So regarding income tax also, income tax is generally designed to catch hold of fictitious transactions, dubious transactions. So when there are genuine transactions with genuine business interest, so we can always get through. So I think those 2 points from my side, I heard an explanation, so I just gave it. Otherwise, it was a wonderful, pleasant experience. I hope the participants also enjoyed very much. So thanks all the panelists, especially Mr. Gupta sir. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Mohanty sir, our pillar of our office and the guiding factor. Sir, anything advice to your sir?
Another thing, actually, what I wanted to tell you, Mr. Vyas also will agree with me. This PSL, the priority sector lending, is actually one of the bottleneck for the bankers to securitize their loans, because the question is, the financial inclusion is important actually for the government of India now. So the financial inclusion part actually is so important. So they don't see actually securitizations as a offshoots of that. So what they do actually, this large portfolio of private sector lending loans remain within the banks, and it moves within the bank or within the banks to Nbfcs, within the financial intermediaries. It is not actually going out of the financial intermediaries. So this if can be thought of, this can create a good source of securitization pool. But it all depends how the government sees, how the RBI sees actually, because ultimately it is the lending rate of interest actually all regulated. So you can't play major role, major a factor in those areas actually.
Thank you, Mohanty sir. I'm really thankful. Ajay Vyas sir is there? Ajay Vyas ji? I think he's not available. I'm just telling you, sir. Last word we want from you, sir.
Guptaji, I have heard all the panelists, Manjunath, Dr. Manjunath, everybody I heard. Probably they are more clear academically on the securitization. We are practicing that in our bank. So what my last words, see, we are working in a very, very controlled environment, and RBI is the major regulator of these banks. Unless until RBI takes a leading role in developing a ecosystem for securitization, things will not move. Some corrective measures. See, rightly, Mr. Mohanty rightly said, we are working about this private sector lending. Most of these small loans are under the private sector lending also. Now we have a cap of 40% on the private sector lending. Now no bank wants to shed their assets. See, even in case of securitization also, if the RBI comes with the regulations, okay, whatever assets you have initiated in a year, we'll talk on those lines. If the regulation comes, instead of giving 40% of your total loan book, the initiation of the accounts should be the criteria, so the securitization will start taking place. Yes. And the bankers will not be in a problem. So a different look, a different philosophy has to be brought in, and RBI should play a vital role. Gupta ji, probably you are on the driving seat right now. From your association, probably you can moot out an idea to the RBI that how the whole ecosystem can be developed for securitization. This will help both the banks and the financial intermediary and the companies also. So what we will do, we will have a better capital adequacy ratio, no issues on that part. You can write to the DFS, the Government of India, change the parameter for evaluating the performance of a bank, your bank. RBI to work on the private sector lending also, PSLs, how to judge those things, bring some different yardsticks to govern these things, because there is no point talking about. NABARD is talking about the fresh funding. See, if you look to the NABARD part, NABARD is not talking about the overall assets towards the private sector assets towards the lend. They are talking how much you have financed in the current financial year. Similarly, on the same line, the RBI should also come with these things rather than going 40% data. So probably the bankers will immediately lower their risk profile. Probably risk management will be much, much better. Underwriting probably will have a better look. Abhi right now, once we fund it, we are holding it till the lifespan of the loan. Now, once they give us a liberty, probably we may sell it off in a year also. So the risk mitigation will be there. We will lower down our risk portfolio. The investor who wants to have better return, probably they may have, because they are getting return of 4 to 5%. In my product, they will get a return of 8%. So probably they will be happy to have we can create new derivatives. We can bundle these products in different tiers. We can create this. We can once the RBI gives a permission, probably new derivatives can be evolved by the PSU banks. I think SBI is in the right position to create new derivatives for these asset-based products. Even non-asset-based product also can be designed. If suppose the repayment schedule is very good, and if the rating is very good, suppose I'm talking about, let's talk about Gupta ji, about credit card only. Now see credit card, what is the default rate? What is the credit cost? Suppose let us understand the credit cost. What is the amount the SBI is taking on the cards? And suppose they bundle it and design a derivative for the receivable credit cards. Probably that now in India, nobody is doing this. The credit card receivables are not marketed in the market. Nobody is there. And probably you could do it. But this whole ecosystem can develop only when RBI comes in play. They should bring it, because every bank looks, कभी MD को कुछ बोलते हैं ना, अरे यार RBI की डायरेक्शन लेके आओ, अच्छा RBI को चिट्ठी लिख दो क्या? They don't think immediately. They say write a letter to RBI, and because RBI don't, they want a very, very explicit letter from the RBI to design a policy also. So from your association, from your platform, probably you can moot out an idea to RBI and to the Government of India how this market can be, this ecosystem can be generated for securitization and structured advances. Probably this is my last words on those issues. Probably you have brought a very good new subject, and nowhere I have heard about this topic. Neither it even discussed in the banking sector also. What is to be done, and this is the first time in India, probably Research in India and your association has brought this idea. I'm thankful to Gupta ji also for thinking very innovative.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think your sir idea is very, very excellent. I will talk to you how to approach the ministry.
Yeah.
So what you are talking about, the performance should be judged from the during the financial year. Not
Yes.
you are fixing the 40% or 30% or for
Ah,
16%. I think that is an excellent idea given to us. And what you are suggesting us, we will also associations for which we are done about 26 webinar.
yeah.
And our main objective is sharing of the knowledge
Mm.
and approaching the government, suggesting some way out how the innovation can be there in the financial market. I think that is a major object for us. And our association, like a mutual fund, can be recognized. Only my request from this platform is we are not charging anything as a member to all the financial advisor. They can become the members of our association because member is strength. When you will be member of association, we are having 1,000, 2,000 member with us, so we can have a right to talk to the IBA and with the government also. I think this is the main object of the association. On behalf of the associations, I am thankful to Sri Mahanti sir, to Sri Manjunath sir, to Maya Krishnan sir, above all Sri Ajay Vyas sir, who always obliged us. Any topic, even you give him 1 hour notice, he will be ready. So I really that
That's
No, no, sir. It's all your blessings. He was my boss in Central Bank. He was my mentor there. So I was very young there. I was hardly scaled to then he was a general manager at the bank. So what we have learned today because of Gupta ji only. So lot of directly, indirectly, lot of thing learning we do from our bosses.
Don't say like that. I respect you because I know you are a very knowledgeable person. Without any, you can say, preparation or anything, you can speak in any subject. Because I think you associated with me so many webinars. So even after even all the feedback is like that. तो सर आपने अजय ब्यास जी को नहीं बुलाया उनको बुलाइए आप. That is a demand for you, sir. You are very knowledgeable man for that. I'm thankful to you, sir. So lastly, I am also telling you that research in India, we are a merchant banker, we are investment banker, we are doing DPR, draft project report we are preparing, we are conducting technical economical viability study also, we are giving education, we are giving, you can say, training to the bankers. Even we are holding some workshop for the banker where the SME are being invited and I am giving some presentation on that. And you can say it is a customer meet. New concept has come out by the research in India, where we are asking the banker, you have a customer meet, where you can distribute the loans also. In one of the two bank, I will not say anything. Now we'll going to hold some workshop where the bank has agreed to disperse about 1,000 crore rupees as a loan. And beside that, they are inviting other dignity just like a venture capital. They are inviting the IPO, and they are also inviting the subsidy. How you can get a subsidy from the banking sector? Such type of workshop we are being used by the research in India. So you can say we are a knowledge sharing company also. Beside the debt syndication or private equity, we are providing for that. Lastly, I overstretched because in my all webinar we overstretched by half an hour. Still 8 minutes are there. I can say thankful to you, sir, for sparing your valuable time and giving a blessing. I think
a pleasure.
today our webinar will be proved to be useful for our members. So even bankers are also attending the workshop beside the entrepreneurs. We are thankful to them. More than 500 sessions with us. Beside the presence, people are also seeing under YouTube, in Facebook, and other LinkedIn also. Thank you very much. With this word,
Thank you.
I am no one to express my gratitude to all the eminent speakers for that. I'm also thankful to my uh, back team, Mr. Surinder, Mr. Devesh, Mr. Lokesh, and Paridalji. So, who was the main pillar who are not seen in a screen, lekin with their cooperation, with their hard work, we are holding such webinars. They are also helping us in day-to-day affairs.
Yes.
Thank you, my teams also for holding such a webinar. Thank you very much, Adilai.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was wonderful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You get the recording also. This we will send you recording.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Nice of you.
Thank you.